Hello, friends online. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. So maybe think a bit about anapanasati as the idea of craft, say. So if you do calligraphy, you know what calligraphy is? You have a pen, you do fancy writing. So to do calligraphy, you have you have materials and you have a design and you have a script and um, you have a goal and you want to write it's like this in calligraphy and then frame it. So the object, the pen, the ink, the structure on the paper, your design um, dictate the craft and help you with the craft. Because if your pen slips, if you make a spelling mistake, um, if you don't design it well, so the object, if you're interested, um, requires attention, and that attention is quite nice. Hello. Um, the there's someone alive down there. Yeah. Might be lie. Brings a bit of humor into the. You're good. Is that an amplifier? Oh, it's better sound. Okay, that's cool. All right, so you get the idea. Um, but that sense of focus is quite nice. It's a nice way to compose your mind. And say, like Ajahn Sucitto is a very good, he's a very good calligrapher. And when we were in Oxford many years ago, he did a calligraphic rendition of the Dhammacakka Sutta, which has been published many, many times. And each page is a work of art, and it's done based on the Book of Kells, which is an Irish Celtic uh, biblical treatise that the monks in old Ireland did. And Sergeant Suchito was doing this. And one day he came to me, there was a finished page, and he showed it to me. It's beautiful, beautiful work. He made a spelling mistake. The whole thing was kaput. You know, like maybe he forgot the two M's in Dhamma or something like that. Oh, tuka. But so if we talk about anapanasati, it's somewhat more difficult because the object isn't interesting. So the object is actually so ordinary that you don't even notice the breath. It's just happening. But if you can create interest around it, I think you develop the puru much more because you're not so dependent on an object. Whereas with say something like calligraphy, um, the object helps you a lot. It's still a good thing to do to have ways of using your hands and using your intelligence in a real world to compose and collect your mind. I think that's a very healthy and enjoyable kind of way to develop focus and concentration. So, the thing about anapanasati, it doesn't really have any interest in it unless you start to have asthmatic attacks or you have a panic attack or the quality of the air is horrible. Then you really, really notice the breath. But ordinarily, it's just sort of going on and on and on. So if you want to do anapanasati, you have to, I mean, it's very, very obvious. You have to um, make known that the material or object you're working with the breath. It's obvious. If you just say, I'm going to watch the breath in a sort of habitual way and don't really inquire into the feeling of breath, then you probably will just drift off. unless you've done it so many times, you're just very adept at it. So Anapanasati Sutta, the yogi knows the long breath is a long breath, knows the short breath is a short breath. So you actually do that. You engage the breath. So you know the material you're working with, just like in woodwork. If I'm working with a piece of oak or a piece of ash or a piece of pine, they're all different woods. And I have to look at them, and I have to see where the knots are and where the grain is, and softwood is different, hardwood, and so on and so forth. So to actually then um, pick up the breath, you play around with it. So you do some deep breathing, and the yogi knows the long breath is the long breath. So you're developing puru. And then you change the breath. Maybe you hold your breath. You don't breathe for a few seconds, not too long, just for a few seconds. Oh, he's dead. Um, and then that's a very obvious one. That's what Luangpor Cha said. If you think too much, just hold your breath. That'll get you. Um, or then you take shorter breaths, or then you maybe count your breaths. So in Zen, quite often they have these kind of counting things, and that's the kind of coarse way of starting anapanasati, but it's very helpful. So some people will count backwards and do things like that. But I think just kind of getting into the body and getting out of the thinking mind requires some deliberate effort to engage the breath. If you're just too subtle, you probably drift off. So having done that, then your attention should be embodied. Your attention should be in the body now, rather than just in abstract thinking. And if it's not, then you have to kind of come back to get in the body. Um, so then the yogi knows the dull mind is the dull mind. The yogi knows the restless mind is the restless mind. So now you're trying to figure out, okay, in this craft, how would breath help with a dull mind? How would how would I be able to sustain puru through a dull mind by actually using the breath? So obviously you're starting to fall asleep. Oh, okay, well, what if I breathe deeply? I mean, it's obvious, but you have to see that uh, first of all, I think you have to understand what the goal is. If your goal is too high, then of course you feel frustrated. But if the goal is simply first of all, presence, that you know what's going on, and then composure, something quite simple. So, say, for example, dullness comes up a lot, maybe, okay, and I've got the breathing. What do I do? Okay, this is the craft. Well, how could I not get so lost in the dullness? And then obviously you have to get more and more embodied. So the same things I've been talking about, long breath in, long breath out, posture, all those things becomes a part of the craft. And you're making very strong intentions now. You're noting that the mind has a lot of dullness. You're not just falling asleep. Or you're actually and you're also not just trying to get rid of dullness. You say, okay, that's the yogi knows that the dull mind is the dull mind. Okay, so how can I sustain puru, and how can I use the body, and so you have an inquiring mind around it. It's you're trying to make something which is terribly uninteresting. Actually, dullness is uninteresting because you just go off into thought. You're trying to make that interesting. You're developing a kind of inquiry into the very nature of dullness, for example, um, and then you're being very vigorous with that. The other one, like restlessness, is a different kind of energy. You kind of, God, this is a long sitting. It's, wow, what? It's only 10 minutes gone? What? You're just so restless. You want to move. You want to leave. You have pain. When you're restless, you have more pain. When you're dull, you don't have any pain. Cool, you're gone. So that requires a difference. So you think, well, how can I use the breath to deal with restlessness? And then maybe, oh yeah, okay. What if I use the out breath? The out breath is actually quite relaxing. There's no effort in the out breath. And say, okay, what if I just use the out breath and just it's like this, or peace, and I really feel the whole out breath going right to the end. That has a really relaxing quality. Do that with dullness, and no, that's not going to work for you. So I feel annoyed at what's going on outside, that the leaves are too loud, or whatever you want. So I have to recognize that the yogi knows annoyance mind is annoyance mind. I don't just try to annihilate that annoyance by just focusing on the breath. That's not mindfulness. So you're always knowing what's going on, and then seeing, okay, that's annoyance. It feels this way, and the in breath feels this way, and the out breath feels this way. So it's a very intelligent inquiry, and it is kind of jeweler's work. Well, sometimes it's concrete work, and sometimes it's very refined work. It kind of depends where you're at. So in terms of just recommendations, um, in terms of thought, and thought leads oftentimes to dullness. I would say really learn about the back of your neck and your chin, significant parts of your body, that when you think this happens, it doesn't happen. It's not huge, but when you're thinking this will probably happen, your head will go. So now you make that part of your anapanasati, breathing in and breathing out. You kind of feeling an open chest, and then oh yeah, okay, where's the head? Where's the head? Where's the head on this? And there it goes, and you start to relate thought to bodily posture. Jeweler's work, right? You're really looking and looking, and then you lose it, and the bell rings, and you've been asleep for 20 minutes. Start again, right? And then, but you have to make a pretty firm intention that this is what I'm doing, because the object itself won't do it for you. Say learning how to ride a bicycle. The bicycle really helps you, because if you don't ride it properly, you'll be on the ground. But you do have to learn balance. So it's the same idea with Anapanasati. You're trying to find the balance of a mind which is composed and can sustain that composure and presence for long spans of time. That's the goal, let's say, quite simply. Um, you could, we could, like on this retreat, we could have breakfast, and we could have a bit of kuigan, talk a bit, and then we could go horse riding. Now that would probably get your concentration levels up. It'd be dangerous and expensive. That's why you would feel more concentrated. Well, that was a great retreat. We all did horse riding, but you wouldn't, you'd get something out of it. Uh, but the subtlety of the breath, of course, doesn't have the danger, doesn't have the excitement, doesn't have the pull. So you have to figure out how to become interested and how to become aware of the breath. I mean, it's an obvious thing. If you've read some super high standards of nimittas and all of that, be careful of that. The ideas of nimittas come from Visuddhimagga. They don't come from the canon. And then you start to look for an nimitta, and you're not aware. Okay, and then the person in the interview says they had bright lights. I didn't get bright lights. I only got boredom. I want bright lights. And then you're not aware anymore. You're trying to pursue, or you had some really lovely experience last week and you try to get that, so on and so forth. So each piece of furniture, each piece of wood is new. Each meditation is different. And you just have to look at, okay, where am I now? And what am I doing for this meditation? Well, I'm I'm going to try Anapanasati, for instance, or Metta Bhavana, and make that quite deliberate in your mind. That's very, very helpful. And then you try Anapanasati for a while, half a year, say, and you say, well, I can't do it. No, 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 you can't. It's not your technique. That's all. That's why we're offered so many techniques by the texts, by the Kuba Ajahn. So if it's not your cup of tea, don't worry about it. Drink coffee. If the shoe doesn't fit, don't worry about it. So don't let yourself, don't beat yourself up for a technique that doesn't appeal to you. So with Anapanasati, um, some people I find they like it and some people don't. Why don't they like it? Mostly because the people that don't like it have too much of a sense of control. That's the kind of general consensus. I haven't done a huge survey, but they feel like they're always controlling. So they find if a kind of more open, like listening, space, silence kind of practice, they find more attractive. But others just can't figure it out. They go to la la land, just all over the planet. And they really find, no, I want to anchor myself into something real and concrete, like the breathing. So these are things you have to figure out for yourself. But just in terms of meditation, I would suggest a really diligent attention to the body, and then the chest, the neck, the chin, and the back of the head, because there's a lot of information there. It can be very instructive of the connection between thought and posture. And then again, in terms of developing an awareness of breathing, you might research, I would say, Ujjayi pranayama, which is the simplest kind of pranayama. And it's basically, it's when you, like if I had a, I said it, I said this earlier, if you have a mirror and you breathe on the mirror to fog it, you're in the back of your throat. So look that up on the internet and give that a go. And so then you've got some more deliberate. I mean, pranayamas they can be very complex with different nostrils and so on and so forth. And that's okay too. Those are good things, but just some consistent way of being more deliberate with the breathing. If you want to develop anapanasati, I'm not saying you need to. That deliberateness, especially when you begin, is, I think, necessary. But then what you find is naturally as your mind calms down and you can be present to the way things are, the need for that deliberateness, whether it's counting the breaths or extending the breath, that need falls away quite naturally because now there is more sati, sampajanya, clarity over a span of time, and the sense of the doer falls away. And this becomes jeweler's work. The whole sense of the doer, doing breathing, you kind of intuitively, no, I can let go now. And the breath is just moving by itself. But if you and so you'll get instructions, don't do anything with the breath. Just let the breath be what it is. Yeah, but why am I falling asleep? So that is maybe a more progressive or a more advanced way of looking at this. First, you have to get in the game. You have to know what material you're working with. If you're naturally very adept to this, then you can understand that. Don't touch the breath. But if not, engage it more. Don't be afraid to engage it. Do something with it. So for me, say restlessness again, the end of the out breath is very interesting because that's the place that both you wander off because there's no effort necessary. But also, if it's a place, if you can sustain awareness right through and just let go and relax, it can be very relaxing, but it's hard to stay attentive there. So you make a deliberate intention. Oh, I'm just going to try that instruction. And then you start to, oh yeah, my mind does wander a lot at the end of the out breath, maybe. I find that. And then that becomes a more inquisitive way of approaching anapanasati because now you've got some interest in some part of the object. So sometimes they say like keep the breath here. I don't like that myself. It's too head centered for me. As you know, I like the heart chakra. I like to the expansion and contraction with loving kindness. I like if I'm if I don't have enough energy, I like the hara. I like pushing out the hara and really pushing down, like pushing down the caustics and pushing out the hara. I like really to get a lot of energy going. I find that really quite nice to do. Whereas anapanasati here, I never liked that. So should I say, oh, you can't do anapanasati because you don't know how to? Not really. It just, I always was kind of squeezing my eyeballs. Where's my nose? And then someone gave me instruction. Well, no. Look, notice your eyes. What's happening to your eyes? Oh, yeah, they're tense. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm trying. Oh, yeah. So relax your whole face. That's why I do those face meditations to kind of get a sense of the head in awareness. But you can see a lot of it is just trying stuff out, inquiring, like you would in a craft, like you would in learning how to do anything well. So I won't give in instruction, but you want to apply those principles of inquiry and deliberateness in even in choiceless awareness. Because choiceless awareness is you're choosing not to focus on an object. So it's not really choiceless. You're still making some intention. So your intention is very like open, spacious, open awareness, and then abiding as witness or abiding as awareness, in awareness. And these are quite nebulous. They're not so concrete. But for a lot of people, they really work much better than strong focus meditation. And then it doesn't have to be either or, obviously. So that's why you have a kind of toolbox. Metta Bhavana is good. Mudita Bhavana is good. Asubha is good, although I've rarely done Asubha. I've only done Asubha in that way of seeing the disadvantage of things. I'm not good on corpses. It brought up too much dosa, I think. But seeing the disadvantage of things is a kind of Asubha. Um, or anapanasati or full body awareness, different ways that you can experiment. And the trouble of laying them all out on a retreat, and people go, which one should I do? And then it gets confusing, right? And you don't want that either. So if you try something, and give it a go for a while, try it out. Like half a year's good. Uh, like if it doesn't work in the first two sittings, my heart bleeds for you. But if you like craft takes a long time, doesn't it? Any skill, you just have to kind of try and try and try, whether it's entrepreneurial skills or communication skills or whatever. They all take time. So keep a kind of inquisitive attitude rather than a defeatist attitude. Oh, I can't do this stuff. No. Well, no. Let's see. How do I feel today? And let's just see what this craft is about. What can I learn from? And then you learn about learning. You learn about learning. You kind of doesn't work. Oh, it's working. So have faith in that. All right, let's do some meditation.